Well, hello everybody, and greetings from Melbourne. No matter where you are right now, here in Victoria, in Australia or overseas, we're delighted to have you here with us today. And we're proud to be part of this virtual open day session where you get to discover so much more about the Faculty of Arts and Education and Deakin University. Many thanks for joining us, for your interest in Deakin, and welcome to all of you. At Deakin, we know that the future belongs to the ready, and we are here today to ensure that you understand your communication and creative arts options through our brand new Bachelor of Arts. So my name is Chris, and I'm joined by Paul Venzo. Hi, Paul.
Hello, Chris.
Nice to see you again. So Paul is the Deputy Director of the new Bachelor of Arts, everyone. And Paul is also a course director in the School of Communication and Creative Arts. Paul, I should say that you're both a lecturer, you're currently teaching a number of units, and you're also an active researcher in the field who has been published very widely. It is great to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for that very warm introduction, Chris. I'm really looking forward to today.
Excellent. We'll chat in just a moment's time, but firstly, at Deakin, we begin formal university meetings and events with an acknowledgement of country. And this is a message to show that as an organisation, we recognise that we work and learn on traditional Indigenous lands. And it's our way of paying our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students who join us at Deakin University or may be in our audience at the moment. We're mindful and respectful that our First Nations people are the traditional custodians of this country and that we work and live in a place that has always valued teaching and learning. So Paul, we've got a lot to learn from you during this session. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we should expect?
Well, we're going to run through a few things today. We're going to really concentrate on the areas of specialisation that prospective students might like to undertake in communication and creative arts. But I also want to talk a little bit about why study arts and why study arts in particular at Deakin with our new Bachelor of Arts degree. And we'll also have some information about the sorts of things, activities that are on as part of our virtual open day. And we'll have some times and links for you to use to go to some other sessions as well. And we'll also have a little bit of information about how to apply for these courses. And so why choose Deakin? Well, I've been with Deakin for many years, both as a lecturer and I also was a student with Deakin. And I know that Deakin is a fantastic place to study, super supportive of its students, very flexible with a great online platform for students that are studying in the cloud. But we also can just look to the statistics as well, which we have up on this slide here. Chris, I think these statistics really speak to the strengths of Deakin University, the goals that we're kicking there. And I'm sure that prospective students that are listening to our presentation today will have some questions about these things as well, say in terms of our online platform, but also on the kinds of courses that are available to them. And I kind of add to that we have fantastic and world-leading staff as well. And so if you come and study at Deakin, I think that that's a really fantastic choice for you to make. So a quick word about studying online. So we've been studying online in Deakin for many years. In fact, I began teaching with Deakin when we were just moving into that world of online learning. And I think we can safely say today that Deakin remains at the forefront of online learning. 40 years of distance and online learning is an amazing accomplishment, but we do not rest on our laurels. We're continuing to perfect and upgrade and develop the opportunities that online learning presents for us as well. So why study arts at Deakin University? Well, for a number of fantastic reasons. First of all, because you can discover how new ideas and different fields of specialization can be combined to create change. And I think it's that impact that students want to make through their degree. And an arts degree is a fantastic way for you to improve your life as an individual, but also contribute to your community. It's about experiences as well, and it's about being taught by fantastic academics who are passionate about the areas that they teach in, and who are really knowledgeable about those areas, and they're often industry leaders and top researchers in their fields. The other reason to study arts at Deakin is to get hands-on experience and to develop the skills that will allow you to transition from your study into a job, into employment. And that's so important. We know that that will be one of the questions at the front of the minds of both our school leavers and other prospective students and their families. Will this lead to a job? I'll speak a little bit more about that later on, Chris, but for now, I think it's important to say that there's that kind of hands-on applied learning approach that we take that really, bodes well for future employment. So we have a new BA, a new Bachelor of Arts. And as part of that, we've decided that it's really important to have a built-in focus on a couple of different areas. The first one is an area that we call global challenges. And so people who come into the Bachelor of Arts are going to be taking 3 different units, so 3 different subjects, I suppose, that are really about upskilling people to recognise and tackle and potentially even solve some of the big problems that confront us today. And we've decided to do that because students often speak to us about the impact that they want to make, about being the difference, about actually making their lives and the lives of others better. And so one of those key kind of graduate outcomes that we look for is the ability to problem solve and also to be a great global citizen. Together with that, we have another fantastic stream called Your Future Career, and that's about employability. So right from the very beginning, we want students to be able to take up opportunities that connect them with our partner organisations, that allow for tailored work placements, have opportunities for networking and engage with industry. It is so important to already have a step into work as you're doing your study. And we know that's true of many areas, but particularly when you're doing arts. When we're concerned, all of us are concerned about work and making sure that what we study results in a really, happy and productive life as well. So it's about meaningful experiences. It's not just about being in a lecture room, although that can be important too. But it's about being ready, job ready, but being able to think critically and creatively as part of your degree, and to have a bit of flexibility there too, to be able to study part-time if that works for you, to be on campus, or indeed to be what we call in the cloud as part of Cloud Deakin on our online learning platform. So Chris, I'm not going to spend too long on this slide because I know that for prospective students, it can be a little bit confusing to work out what these points mean and credits and so forth. But it's just a slide to kind of show you how you make up the components of a Bachelor of Arts. So when we talk about those points there, we're really talking about mostly about individual units of study. So a particular subject that you would do in one of our trimesters, because of course at Deakin we have 3 trimesters rather than 2 semesters. And that means that you can also study during the summer, which is fantastic. So essentially we have some units that we ask all students in the Bachelor of Arts to take that help them build up skills in terms of employability and in terms of problem solving. And then we also have majors and minors, and all students will do either 2 majors or 1 major and 2 minors. And the easiest way to understand a major and a minor are, these are areas of specialization. If you do a major, you'll be doing lots of units around the same kind of what we call a discipline area, so the same kind of subject. If you do a minor, slightly fewer, but still with some specialisation in that area. Then the fantastic thing about a Bachelor of Arts is that you can add electives to that as well. So you might be interested, say, in dance and drama, but you also might want to add, say, a minor in there that's to do with creative writing, because you might want to write scripts. So there are opportunities there to kind of build the Bachelor of Arts that suits you. And I think that's a fantastic strength of this degree. Now, there are some amazing people out there that take on double degrees as well. This is an exciting opportunity. Before the presentation today, I was mentioning to Chris that I was speaking to a colleague of mine that I collaborate with in life sciences, in particular in marine science. In fact, I have a student who crosses over between children's literature and marine science and marine science education. So that's just kind of one of the examples of the way that you can potentially combine degrees. So if you're looking at the sorts of offerings that I'm going to showcase today and you think, yeah, but I also am interested in doing something like a Bachelor of Laws or a Bachelor of Commerce, then those opportunities are definitely there for you. And our student course teams will have advice about that too. Now, this is the slide that I've been waiting to get to, Chris. This is the slide that really excites me, because here is a list of all of our majors and minors in the Bachelor of Arts. And the ones that I really want to draw people's attention to are the ones that are there in pink, in italics. I really wanted those to stand out for people, because they're the majors and minors that exist in the School of Communications and Creative Arts, where I work. And I think, don't tell anybody, but I think these are the fun ones. These are the great ones. And with some fantastic variety there as well. I'm going to run through these over the next couple of slides. Here, it's just a way of saying that you can pick up, a major or a minor from those that are in pink, and complement it with a major or minor for those from the other school and the other majors and minors that are listed there as well. So you don't have to do the ones in pink, although I think they're the great ones, Chris. So we'll talk about a little bit more about these in a little bit more detail now. But just, looking at this slide, I think this thing that really stands out for me is just the variety that's on offer here. So everything from animation through to sports journalism and even dance and drama. So there are so many different opportunities there. And let's get to it, Chris. Let's talk about a few of these, shall we?
Sure.
So communication and creative arts, majors and minors in the Bachelor of Arts. So why would you do these? Because they foster creativity and critical thinking, critical approaches, and we embed that in our assessment. So we make sure that we don't just talk the talk, but we walk the walk on this as well. This gives you the opportunity not just to do, I think students coming into a Bachelor of Arts thinks it's just going to be essays, essay, and possibly exams. Well, that's not going to be the case at all. It's going to be a mixture of things. We don't really do exams anymore, Chris, which will be exciting to a lot of people, but we do now have amazing different forms of creative assessment, of different styles of assessment as well. So for instance, I've had students recently that have been doing blog posts as part of their assessment. So something that they're already familiar with, from that kind of social media perspective. It's also an opportunity. These majors really allow you to get kind of stuck into some of the big ideas and issues facing society today. So to be thinking about, things like identity and subjectivity and community and the challenges that we're facing through things like, say, climate change, just as an example. Our units in these majors also allow for those hands-on learning opportunities that I was speaking about before, with placements and internships and so forth, and also the capacity to build up a folio, which is really fantastic. I think we'll speak a little bit more about that later on, and to develop skills with leaders in the field, and that's really critical too. So one of the things that really is fantastic about Deakin are their facilities, Chris. I don't know, I haven't had the opportunity yet to go to the television studio. Have you?
I certainly have many, many times.
People rave about it, and I'm going to have my first visit there later this year. But it really speaks to one of the great strengths. I know that television has been one of those areas where there's been some fantastic partnerships and opportunities for placements too, haven't there?
That's correct. Paul, when you visit, make sure you ask the technicians about the live television broadcasts that have taken place there, straight to NITV and other places. And of course, our audience will have the opportunity to view those facilities at the on-campus open day in August, which will be excellent.
Yeah, so there's an opportunity to take up a film or television and animation. We have as a minor there as well. I've seen some great work that our animators have been doing, not just in terms of like short film making, but also in terms of the kind of animation that you might do for social media or for advertising as well. So fantastic breadth there, I think. We also have a terrific theatre and a really strong tradition of dance and drama. I had the opportunity to go and look at one of the final performances done by a PhD student at the theatre on the Burwood campus, and it was just extraordinary, Chris. What a great vibe! What a great atmosphere there for that. I know. Look, one of my great challenges for this year, can you believe it? I'm going to learn how to tap dance. But of course, there are many different forms of kind of creative movement and dance and drama that feed into and really complement some of the work that I'll talk about in creative writing around script writing and script making. A fantastic way of dovetailing things there too. So I always get a bit excited when I see performing arts there, because I know that a lot of young people are really excited about that. Sure. And there's a great opportunity there to follow that passion. Visual arts and photography is really strong too. Deakin, throughout the year hosts exhibitions and installations at our various campuses. There's a very, a strong team there who are themselves artists who are working in visual art and media, who will be leading those units in that major. Again, it dovetails very nicely with the sorts of things that you might be doing, say, if you were doing communications or media or other kind of, learning in the performing arts areas too. So this is harking back to many years ago for me, when I actually had I dipped my toe very quickly in the world of design as a young person, and at Deakin, design is a really strong part of our offerings in the School of Communication and Creative Arts. Here in the Bachelor of Arts, it blends really the conceptual, the theoretical with some of that hands-on stuff there. It's an opportunity, I think, for those that might be interested in advertising. I think, the opportunity to do strategic advertising, is a way perhaps to combine that with something like public relations, digital media, journalism, and so forth. Web design is really interesting. I think I would say in my job, Chris, I wonder if this is the same for you, that web design is actually something that I had to learn to do as part of my job, in designing curriculum and so forth. And I would imagine it's part of your job as well.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, so for young people coming into study and then into the workforce, I think, being able to do, even basic web design is just going to be so important. So there's an opportunity there to take that as a minor too. And visual communication design, again, great for people who might want to combine that with visual arts, but it's really multidisciplinary too. So, a great digital focus there. And there are some fantastic people working on that team who are going to be joining us for the Q&A. So if you've got questions, I can't wait to hear some of them.
before moving on, we've got around about 10 minutes, can you believe, until the end of this
Wow.
session. I regret to say, I know we've got a lot to get through.
I will keep moving. So, of course, media and media and communications. I mentioned earlier public relations is part of that too. I love that line, if you're a born communicator, a career in public relations could be for you. Maybe I've missed my calling, Chris, I wonder, because I can talk. But here, I think this is looking at this slide, I think there are some fantastic opportunities here. Like in the past, we might have thought just, oh, well, if you're going to do this, you're going to go into journalism. But there are lots of different pathways into lots of different kinds of careers that are related to the media. You know, recently with things like an election campaign, we see that, you know, really upfront and in operation, the kind of jobs that go, you know, both in the government and non-government sectors. This also relates to things like, you know, brand management and the sort of social media stuff, the building up of kind of identities and profiles, but also, you know, communicating ideas about products and services and so forth. Finally, at the end there, I did want to give a bit of a shout out to sport journalism, which people are so excited about. I am too. A long time ago, I worked in radio, and one of the most exciting local radio, one of the most exciting things each week was when we did the kind of local sport roundup. And it was so exciting. You know, everybody would call in and we'd do a quiz on it. Chris, this is a fantastic burgeoning industry, really.
Indeed, yes, it really is.
We love our sport, and we love our sport journalism too. Well, now I'm on home turf because I happen to be the course director for 3 out of the 4 things on this slide here, but I love all of them. Look, we have some amazing people working in writing and literature at Deakin. We have award-winning writers and poets. We have opportunities for people to contribute to literary journals. We have students that have gone on to work in children's literature to become young adult authors. You know, this is a fantastic area. Yes, I'm totally biased. My love of children's literature is really obvious. But I love it because students, when they come into this, they can't believe that they have the opportunity to study, you know, things like, you know, poetry or picture books, or to actually go on and do creative writing and creative assessment that allows them to test out their own skills in things like writing, say, you know, life writing or microfiction, or even the kind of writing that we might see, you know, for evolve into things like graphic narratives. So writing and literature, you know, we have a writing and literature blog. There's a bit of a shout out to that. All you have to do is writing and literature blog Deakin, and you'll find it, and you'll be able to see a funny old photo of me and all of my wonderful colleagues. And we have a Twitter feed for that as well. Gender and sexuality studies is another really popular major in the Bachelor of Arts, and it's a major that's grown up over the course of the last few years, and it really intersects with some of the big questions in society at the moment. So there's that opportunity there for students to think about their own kind of, you know, relationship to gender and sexuality, but also the kinds of discourses and debates that run hot in society about this stuff at the moment, how that, you know, affects how we think about, you know, things like equality and parity, and how, you know, our place in the world is affected by things like identity and the intersections of things like gender, sexuality, race, class, age, and so forth. And so a really important slide here, Chris. This has the information for when the other information sessions are on. So I really want to encourage people, if I piqued your interest in a certain area, to jump in and listen to those, but they are recorded. So if you don't manage to get to the individual session that you're interested in, you can always come back and listen to the recording. We do have a live Q&A after this session, but also after all of those sessions. So there's an opportunity for you to ask questions. And of course, our course advice teams are on standby as well as our fantastic course directors who are going to, give you a lot more detailed information that will answer your specific questions too. Oh, student outcomes. Well, there are some fantastic outcomes. We find that students gain employment in a whole range of interesting areas, everything from kind of like policy development, for government through those performing arts, fine arts, those hands-on kind of, creative arts professions. Of course, education and training is a huge employer for Bachelor of Arts graduates, and particularly from these fields. Advertising, media, public relations, social media. I'm not sure, Chris, I'm not sure if any of my students have turned out to be influencers yet, but my feeling is that they probably have.
Well on the way, yes.
Well on the way. But also writers, editors, copywriters, publishers, and people who work in libraries. There are so many different opportunities. And feel free to ask us in the Q&A about where some of our students have ended up as well in terms of their employment.
Paul, I do have a question for you, if you don't mind. We've only got a couple of minutes now, but I would like to know on behalf of our audience, how important is personal branding for entry into the communication or creative industries?
It is so, so much part of what we do now. And I see that with colleagues and how they, build up a kind of profile, and how we teach students through things like that kind of assessment, that blog assessment that I was talking about before, to really contribute to the building up of their identity. Accumulating a portfolio of writing or a portfolio of digital media, for example, or creative practice, is a fantastic way of building that kind of personal brand identity. And then that's part of what you take when you go out and you're looking for a job and you're applying for jobs. Employers love it when they can actually see, those runs on the board. With our writing students, for example, we do things like getting them to do a pitch to publishers. So they're already kind of well on the way to being able to talk about themselves and their skills and their experiences.
Thank you very much, Paul. I regret to say that we're very quickly coming to the end of this session, but to our audience members now, depending on your current situation, whether you're at school or perhaps already in the workforce, you can apply to Deakin now to commence in trimester 1, 2023, or if you're a non-school leaver, trimester 3, which commences in November of this year. To our international students, you can learn more about applying to Deakin or scholarships or student life at the university by joining our information sessions, or write to our international experts via the web chat all day today. So many thanks for joining us today, and here's hoping that you'll enjoy the live Q&A session directly after this presentation. And if you would like to see what other students have to say about their studies of the Bachelor of Arts, then take a look at our student stories. Paul, I wondered if you'd be so kind as to conclude with a 15-second message of inspiration to our audience today.
Chris, for the students out there that are thinking about taking up a Bachelor of Arts and one of these majors or minors, come and say good day to me. This is the pathway that I took. It worked well for me. And trust me when I say that this is a great decision that you're about to make.
Nicely said, thank you. Well, that brings our session to a close. Thank you, Paul, for your informative presentation and your good sense of humour and charm. And to our audience, wherever you are in the world, we thank you for joining us, and we hope to welcome you to Deakin in the near future. Goodbye for now. Well, hello, everybody, and greetings from Melbourne. No matter where you are right now, here in Victoria, in Australia or overseas, we're delighted to have you here with us. And we're proud to be part of this live question and answer session at our virtual open day. Many thanks for joining us, for your interest in Deakin University, and welcome to all of you. So at Deakin, we know that the future belongs to the ready, and we are here today to ensure that you understand your communication and creative arts options through our brand new Bachelor of Arts. And for those of you who have just joined us, my name is Chris, and I'm joined by Paul Venzo, Katie Lee, and Jess Phillips. Hi, Paul. Hi, Katie, and hi, Jess. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Chris. Nice to be here.
Great, glad you can join. Jess, firstly to you, you're a student ambassador here in the Faculty of Arts and Education. Very nice to have you with us, and we will be asking you a number of questions throughout the session, of course.
Yeah.
Paul, you are Deputy Director of the new Bachelor of Arts and a Course Director in the School of Communication and Creative Arts, and likewise, we have a ton of questions lined up for you. And then Katie, you are a lecturer in art and performance, and likewise, we trust you'll be getting plenty of questions from our audience. So in the background today, we have a team of specialists from our School of Communication and Creative Arts waiting to receive your questions. So use this fabulous opportunity to get answers to those niggling questions about studying a Bachelor of Arts and your interest in communication and creative arts. Paul, firstly, would you be able to share with us perhaps who is behind the scenes right now? Is there anyone that can answer questions about photography or dance or writing and literature, for example?
Oh my goodness, there's a fabulous team behind the scenes, and I want all of our listeners and participants today to send them your curly questions immediately. Any questions that you have about any of the material that was in the presentation that you've just watched, questions about particular majors, we're good to go on that. We've also got some student course advisors on hand. So if you have questions about things like enrollments and so forth, and even if you're an international student, they're on hand as well to answer those. And we'll try and get to a lot of your questions, but if we miss it, one of our fabulous course directors will pick it up, or our student advisory teams as well. So I think we've got you covered.
Fantastic, thank you. Jess, I wondered if we could start with a question to you firstly. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you study, and why is it that you sought out the role of student ambassador?
Yeah, absolutely. So I study a Bachelor of Arts and I major in visual arts. I'm in third year at the moment, so we're kind of getting towards the end, working more towards a professional practice and really refining kind of what our practice is going to look like going forward. But I decided to become a student ambassador because I started at Deakin studying biomedical science, and I did that for 2 years and then decided, actually, this really isn't for me, which is kind of something that was a bit scary, but was actually really common. And I didn't really know that until after I'd kind of made the jump over to arts. So I am really passionate about just letting students know that it's really not often a straight linear way towards getting a degree. You might start something and then decide that actually it's not for me, and that can be kind of a difficult thing to grapple with, but I promise it's so normal. So that's kind of what I'm really passionate about talking to new students about.
So Jess, how would you describe your time so far studying at Deakin, given that you've come from biomedical science, now majoring in visual arts? Are there any highlights that you can talk to?
Absolutely. So it is a little bit of a weird one because I started biomed in 2017, and then I started arts in 2020. So obviously everything completely shut down and we went online. So there were two very different experiences. But all the same, I was really happy with the way that we kind of came out of those 2 years in lockdown, because all of our classes adapted really, really well. But for me personally, I brought over a lot of the skills that I learned in biomed over into my artistic practice. And, you know, all of it hasn't gone to waste, so to speak. What
So Jess, tell us a little bit about what that kind of transfer into visual arts was like, coming from biomedical science. What was it that was driving you to study that major?
So the biggest difference I found was you're working with two very different fields of practice. So when I came into arts, I found that all of my lecturers were like really hands-on in what we were trying to make, and you know, all of us together in our classes wanted to kind of work on all of our new projects kind of together and kind of collaborate a little bit more. What else can I say for that? Sorry.
Well, how about I move on to the next question, because I do have one that I'd like to get to, Jess, if you don't mind. And then Katie and Paul, I will move on to some audience questions for you in just a moment. But firstly, staying with you, Jess, to our audience now, Deakin Talent is our university careers and employment service. And Jess, I've got a question for you with regards to Deakin Talent. Have you been able to take some career steps during your degree so far in the form of an internship, or have you had some input from Deakin Talent?
Absolutely. So I'm currently on board with an internship with Katie. Katie's like a massive driving force for, and it's been really exciting. And this is also what I found from, my classes in studying arts, is that my lecturers have always been really hands-on with what opportunities they have to give. So I've had jobs at Deakin. I'm part of this internship, which might lead on to another internship. So it's all kind of like they're really open about wanting everybody to say yes to the opportunities that are there, because they are there. So I've had a lot of involvement with that sort of thing.
Katie, I'm going to ask you a question. So picture I'm a student who's aspiring to study art and performance units in the Bachelor of Arts. What should I expect? And will you teach me?
I certainly will. So you have a lot of choices, and I think we've got such an amazing smorgasbord of subjects and units that you can take, that your biggest decision is going to be which ones to do. So within the creative arts, generally, you can major in visual arts, or you can major in design. You can major in various different areas. But within the creative arts, you can do theatre production, photography, analog photography, digital photography, visual arts, 2D practices, 3D practices. You can do creative writing. So there's a huge number of things. And that's what this new course is really designed to do, is to open up this kind of world of creative subjects that you can take, but to also guide you through it, so you're getting a skill set within each of those. So it's not sort of like, dabbling around too much and getting a little bit confused. We're trying to give you the basic foundations of any of the areas that you might choose to study. So I think I froze there for a minute. Sorry about that.
No worries,
I got so excited, or just went on freeze mode. But yeah, so we've got, I guess the options really would be, do you want to major in something, or do you want to build sort of a couple of skills, foundational skills across two different areas? So for example, theatre production, creative writing, or analog photography and 2D visual arts practices. So I think what Jess has done is she's majored in visual arts, and so she has had a really strong visual arts kind of experience. Really, she's one of our really strong final graduates. She's taking up all the visual arts kind of major projects, and she's identifying very much as a visual arts student, even though she's coming through the BA. Whereas others might choose to locate themselves further into the BA and come into our creative arts subjects as kind of complementary units. And there's some really exciting options for that, with, doing a BA and then taking sort of, some photography studies, so that you can do, work within magazines or journalism, or start to build up your sort of skill set across both the creative and the sort of more literary studies angle. So I could go on about it longer, but I'll open it back up, so in case anyone wants to know something more specific about that, because there's a huge amount of choice. It's actually a very exciting time at Deakin in the creative arts.
Absolutely.
For the BA students.
Thank you, Katie. I've got one more question for you about careers, and then Paul, I have a number of questions that have come in from the audience, including from Penny and Sarah. We'll get to your questions in just a moment's time. Katie, what careers and jobs can you do after completing these types of creative majors within the Bachelor of Arts?
Sure. Well, we're very skills oriented. So we do try to give you foundational skills in a whole bunch of areas. So for example, if you're doing photography, you're really doing a professional photography course where you're learning to become a studio photographer as much as you are a creative artist. But beyond that, in the visual arts and the creative arts in general, you're building a skill set and adapting it to industry. So we're constantly providing you real industry sort of related opportunities that you might move into. So Jess is moving into, working with us in internships, but also in research assistants. We have students come through that are practicing professional artists. We have students come through that will go into, gallery jobs, working for councils. I'm talking about the visual arts in particular, but our students come through in any of the creative arts areas wanting to be practicing professionals, and then understanding how the creative industries work around that. So there are all sorts of peripheral industries that sit around each of the creative arts areas, including drama, theatre and dance and everything in the whole suite of creative arts units and discipline areas that students all end up working in. So they could be in education, but they could also be in sort of production roles. They can be in assisting roles. They can be in studio assisting roles. There's actually enormous amounts of work in each of those industries. So what we try to do is kind of give everybody a glimpse into what that is, and continue to sort of throw them back out into the world to sort of show where their interests connect into different industry areas. And I could only say the world's your oyster. Finish
Fantastic.
up that little rant.
Yeah, no, it's very good, Katie. Thank you. We
Chris.
have had a number of questions come in, Paul. I'm going to turn straight to you now, if you don't mind.
Can I just quickly rip on what Katie was saying?
Absolutely.
Even, if we're looking at the communications angle, as well as the kind of what we might call the more traditional creative or performing arts, things like PR, things like media, social media, which we have a major in as well. One of the things that we know is that Bachelor of Arts students in particular, whether they take up, creative arts, communications, they have fantastic job opportunities and job outcomes. And in fact, their employability is as good as, if not better than, people coming out of things like science degrees, across the medium and long term. The other interesting thing that I thought I'd share with people is that, economically speaking, arts generates more economically in Australia than sport does every year. We also have a sport journalism major as well, which I should plug while I've got the chance, just saying that. But it just gives an indication about those fantastic employment opportunities that Katie was talking about.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. We're going to stay with you now. Firstly, we have a question from the audience saying, my partner and I would like to undertake a master's in creative writing with a focus on novel, script and screenwriting. Is this possible? We are both alumni of Deakin.
Short answer, yes. And I really encourage whoever asked that question to come along to our to the Q&A session for writing and literature later this afternoon, which I think from memory is kicking off at around 3 p.m. Because we'll have Associate Professor Christine Maruzzi there, who is in charge of the Master's Program for Writing and Literature. So she can answer that question in a little bit more detail than I can. But essentially, yes. And it's a great example of the kind of combination study that Katie was talking about, that you might have a particular interest in creative writing, but you might combine that with something like the performing arts or filmmaking or animation. And so there are those great opportunities to kind of cross-pollinate, which I think is something that Jess, was kind of talking about in terms of those capacities to go into particular areas, having a major focus, but then being able to complement that. I mean, that's one of the real strengths of both the Bachelor of Arts and the Bachelor of Creative Arts that we have as well.
Paul, we're going to stay with you. I'm going to combine two questions from audience members for you. So firstly, Penny has asked, within creative writing, is there any sort of assessment where you create your own writing with your own chosen theme? And then perhaps we can combine it with this question from Sylvia. What does it take to write a novel? And would creative writing help me?
It takes a lot to write a novel, but yes, of course. And in fact, we have foundational studies within creative writing that will allow you to kind of step up towards that major kind of project that you might do. You know, writing isn't a novel is something that people might actually tackle for something like a master's or a PhD project, but you need those foundational skills in order to do it. I have students that certainly, you know, approach long form writing as part of their further study, but we also have opportunities at the undergraduate level for you to do writing around the things that you are interested in. So that's where those foundational skills come in, that are also transferable across a number of different kind of areas. So Chris, you know that I have a particular love for children's literature. It's the area that I teach in.
Yes.
You know, I'm a creative writer in children's literature as well. So I have students that want to do things like write a picture book. And so there are opportunities there to work, you know, thematically in the areas that are of interest to them in working on children's literature. In the same way as we try and open up those opportunities, sometimes in a unit, you'll be asked to write within a particular framework, which can be really challenging, but a great skill to have as well. But there are, of course, those opportunities for you to follow the kind of areas that you're passionate about.
Excellent, Paul. I think you've answered Penny's question very well, as have you Sylvia's question. Penny, Sylvia, any further follow-up questions? You know where to drop them in, and we'll chat soon. So Paul, you authored a children's book quite recently. Tell us a little bit about that process for you. Is this something that you find easy nowadays after your career?
So I worked collaboratively with a friend and colleague in marine science to write a children's book about the Great Southern Reef. Now, everybody's heard about the Great Barrier Reef, but the Great Southern Reef, which runs from the top of New South Wales all the way around the Western Australian coast, is, you know, it's a biodiversity hotspot, globally recognised. And so we wrote a children's book featuring the fabulous Professor Seaweed about that. And so it's a good indication about, you know, the capacity at Deakin for you to kind of, you know, invest in areas that you perhaps haven't even thought of before. I know that, you know, Katie in her area does amazing work. I've seen some of Katie's filmmaking, which is just incredible. And so students are actually in touch with both teachers who work on a conceptual level, but also teachers who are hands-on, who are doing the things that they're actually teaching about. And I think that's so important. You know, you can have a look. You know, I know in my area, we've got a writing, literature and gender and sexuality studies blog. So you can actually look us up and have a look at the kind of projects that we're working on. And I'm sure in Katie's area, you know, you just need to Google these names and you will find out the exciting things. And I hope that for people like Jess, having teachers who are kind of hands-on gives you a sense of what you're able to do in the future.
Mm-hmm. At that point, Paul, I will turn my attention to Katie for a second. Katie, a question's come in from Sarah. Sarah asks, I was wondering, with so many options and degrees, how do I know which course is right for me? So I'm a very creative person, and I love creative writing and media studies. I'm currently enrolled in a few online writing courses, and I'm very excited to hear your input. Can you give Sarah a hand, please, Katie?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the sort of thing, Sarah, that I'd be really happy to talk to you about as well. So whilst I can't see you and we can't sort of go back and forth, I guess, you know, A, get in touch, B, come to our other open day where we'll both be there, Paul and myself and others. But in general, I suppose you sort of need to think about what you need to know, what you need to learn, and what you're the most vulnerable in a way, so that we can support you and give you the skills that you need. So, you know, in a Bachelor of Arts, you've got an enormous breadth of options. You know, you can sort of build up a creative degree in really, and we'll help you the full way through. So you're not locked into anything too early on. You can still continue to sort of make your own sort of recipe through that degree. But I mean, it sounds to me like, you know, the sort of major and couple of minor model that we offer would really suit you, because you can sort of build up a skill set that's not just, you know, majoring in or double majoring in one area, but that you could sort of do the media communication stuff. You could also do some really open studio practice stuff with us in visual arts or across the photography areas, but then have some more foundational stuff coming through from the Bachelor of Arts that might, you know, give you a knowledge base in some way that you want to. But it's, yeah, without sort of knowing a little bit more about what you're actually wanting to do, it's probably, yeah, I guess I mean, you could also be talking about being overwhelmed with so many different options to choose from. And I think that you'll find that the streams that we put together, the sort of combinations of units that we've put together, will really help you to sort of not get overwhelmed, not to feel like you're just sort of doing random subjects here and there. We've really thematized them so that you can sort of select blocks. So for example, again, speaking in visual arts context, if you chose 2D practices, we'd take you through a series of different units that will kind of shape up that whole thing, versus if you wanted to work more in 3D space or public space, we'd take you through a different set of units. So I would rely on the course, I guess, the combinations that we've put together, which we really hope will give you both a breadth of experiences, but also sort of target those foundational skills. And perhaps Paul could speak more to the bachelor sort of options that you might want to take that could, you know, help ground you in the BA.
Nicely done. Thank you very much for that, Katie. Paul, would you like to add anything further to Sarah's question?
I think just a couple of things. Chris, you know that I'm obsessed with course mapping because I love them. And our course advisors have these amazing little maps that they do where they can put in the subjects that you're going to study across the 3 or 4 years that you might be with us. And of course, at Deakin, we have 3 trimesters. So it's fantastic. It means that you can kind of, you know, get some study done over the summer if that suits you, you know, maybe work in intensive mode. And those student maps, I really encourage everybody that enrolls with us to meet with a student advisor and fill one of those out, because it's then that you can do what Katie's talking about, where you can see, all right, so where are the gaps where I might put in interesting electives that complement what I do. I think it's always important, you know, our student advisors are going to be on hand all day today. There's that little, I think it's a little yellow box that you can type a little message into there, and you can talk to them about the kind of combinations that you might do to drill down into those kind of individualized questions that you might have. But in general, I'd say to everybody, get involved with doing a bit of that course mapping, because there's sort of an at-a-glance view of you know, your specializations and your electives and so on. In the Bachelor of Arts, of course, we have 2 of these new sequences that we do to enable you to concentrate on employability and on this fabulous thing called Global Challenges, which is all about you making an impact. You know, that might be, you know, through your creative practice as well, or through something like, you know, if you're doing the social media major, or in communications, or in writing, it might be something, you know, framed around that you're particularly kind of interested in applying those ideas to. So I very much encourage people to talk to course advisors who can help you in that process.
That's excellent. Good responses. Thank you, Katie and Paul and Sarah. Absolutely. The course mapping is your kind of wayfinding tool to visualize the path ahead in terms of your degree, and it just it lets you make quite decisive choices about where you want to go. Paul, let me see. I had a question that I developed a little bit earlier. That's right. I'd like to know a little bit more about this, if you don't mind. We know that Deakin is very committed to promoting equity and diversity and inclusion. Would you say that the gender and sexuality studies major is a reflection of that?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's something that's been developed over the past few years. I'm really proud of it at Deakin. I happen to be the course director for the Gender and Sexuality Studies major in the Bachelor of Arts. It's very close to some of the research that I do. Fabulous colleagues who work in that area. It's an opportunity for people to get the fundamentals, so from an historical point of view, but also to be looking at the kind of gender and sexuality through the prism of things like Me Too, intersectionality as well, you know, looking at how gender and sexuality intersect with things like race and class and social positioning and so forth. There's a great suite of units there in that major. I encourage people to, you can actually Google that, just Google Gender and Sexuality Studies Deakin, and the major will come up with the units that we have there. And there are some options for you to take, you know, a couple of units, some in writing, so people who want to do kind of creative practice and apply it in that area, literary studies, we even do gender and sexuality in children's literature, which is, you know, one of my areas of research. And I do think, Chris, I really thank you for that question. I think it does really reflect Deakin's commitment to, you know, promoting, you know, equity and diversity across a whole range of different areas. We'll have some activities during the on-campus open days as well around that. So hopefully you can come and meet me and some of the team there as well. I think, as Katie was saying before, you know, if there are questions that you have, we're really easy to find. So you can email us, and there's also all of this other information online. So you can look up, you know, the kind of research that we do as well.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Paul. I'm going to turn briefly to you, Jess, and I'm afraid we only have a few minutes left, audience members, so get your questions into us while you've got the chance. Jess, how do you find balancing studying, placements, work, and life? Does Deakin have good support students, or good support systems for students rather?
Absolutely. Like, you know, I'm quite lucky in that because I had a bit of a weird way into arts, I have like fewer classes that I need to do now. I'm on the back end. So that's been made really easy for me to be able to handle some of these extracurricular things as well as work. But always, like, if you talk to any of your lecturers and you're like, we've got these massive assignments coming up and I've got work every day beforehand or anything like that, they are so sympathetic. Like, there's never going to be, they're never going to be like, well, too bad, you know, like we all know each other so well that we know kind of what's going on in, you know, the gist of everyone's lives. So if it's ever a problem and you speak to a lecturer, they're always going to try and help you out.
Yes, I'm very pleased to hear that. And of course, it was a loaded question. I think I knew the answer to it already, but I'm really pleased to hear that you seem to be really kind of mastering that, which is wonderful. I've got an open question now to Paul and Katie. What's the difference between doing a Bachelor of Creative Arts and majoring in creative arts subjects to the Bachelor of Arts? Can you talk to that a little bit?
I'll begin, and I'm interested in what Katie might say about this as well. But from my perspective, both are great. So let's start with that. And arming yourself with information about those two options is a really good idea. So we've got information online about the Bachelor of Creative Arts and the Bachelor of Arts. I think very generally speaking, I'd say that the difference is that the Bachelor of Arts is about kind of tailoring a degree that suits, you know, an individual approach, possibly with a slightly more conceptual focus. Whereas with the Bachelor of Creative Arts, you're all in for the creative practice element of that. Of course, in the Bachelor of Arts, communications and creative arts. So the two things kind of combined there. And of course, sometimes units will straddle the two, and sometimes they'll be just situated in one degree or the other. And again, there's information about that online. I think the option for you will be determined by exactly the kind of pathway that you want to take and how you might want to tailor things. You know, if you're going to do the Bachelor of Arts, it might be that you want to do some of that creative practice, but you also might want to get some of that foundational stuff, you know, perhaps by doing the employability sequence and the global challenges sequence, you know, or particular electives. Or maybe you're thinking, right, you want to dip in, you know, and head towards education as a kind of top-up degree that you do after you do your Bachelor of Arts. There are a whole range of kind of options for you, but I encourage you really to arm yourself with information. And again, it's something that if you've got particular questions about that, please get in touch. I love talking about this stuff, and I love hearing about people's sort of individual pathways.
Yes.
I probably need to shush so that we can hear from Katie.
That's fine. But you're so right. I mean, staff members at Deakin are really, really passionate about talking to students about this and finding out more about your aspirations and I guess your dreams, if you will. And on that note, I've got a question for each and every one of you. Before we finish off, we are starting to run over time now. I wondered, Katie, if we could start with you. What is your message of inspiration to the audience today?
I think the community that we offer at Deakin, the staff sort of collegiality, the sort of commitment and embeddedness, we've actually got a community out there of practice, and that you don't work alone when you work with us out there. And it's not a separation from your life. It's an embeddedness in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my moment of inspiration will be come and join us, where you won't be alone in your practice.
Nice one. Thank you. Jess, would you like to have a crack at that question too? What's your message of inspiration to the audience?
Yeah, I would say, speaking from experience, you've always got to follow what you're most passionate about, because that's going to be the easiest way to work, like you're going to thrive in an environment where you're doing what you love. And it can be a little bit scary as well if you're someone like me that kind of started doing something else and then you're like, oh no, like I've already done 2 years of it, but it's been so worth it. And I'm like, I've had such a great time doing this course at Deakin, and it's coming to the end of my bachelor now, but we're going to be continuing on doing honours and stuff, so I'm thrilled.
Excellent. Thank you, Jess, very much for that. And Paul, finally to you, your message of inspiration for the audience before we wrap up.
Very simply, many years ago, I had the opportunity to do a Bachelor of Arts, and it was a truly life-changing decision for me to do that. I think that we have some fabulous things to offer. I hope that anybody that's listening today will do exactly what Jess and Katie are talking about. Follow that passion and come and find out about this community and join us.
Excellent. Thank you very much to the three of you for that. And of course, this brings our session to a close right now. So thank you very much, Jess, to you for taking part, and likewise to you, Katie and Paul. It's always a great pleasure catching up with you. Thank you to our audience members, wherever you are in the world. We thank you for joining us, and we hope to welcome you to Deakin in the very near future. And goodbye for now. All the very best. Bye-bye.